Welcome to the Western New York Athletics High School Football Weekly Show with Frank Wolf and Dick Gallagher, brought to you by Scroy Financial in West Seneca, Danny's Restaurant with 2 locations, 3715 Genesee Street in Cheektowaga and in Orchard Park on Abbott Road near the stadium, and G&G Fitness at 7350 Transit Road near Main Street in Amherst. Check them out on the web at livefit.com.
Hello and welcome to High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics along with Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports. This is the 11th episode, our final episode of the season. We are on our way to regionals. We just had the Section 6 playoffs this past weekend at New Era Field, the first week of playoffs among Monsignor Martin. A and B divisions, they will square up their season here Saturday at UB, where all 5 of the Section 6 winners are on their way to Brockport this Friday and Saturday to play in those regional games, and hopefully they can continue moving forward. I know WNY Athletics will be doing those games on Mixlr. Those 5 games out of Brockport will be audio only, mixlr.com/WNY Athletics. But that Canisius St. Francis game from UB, that'll be on NFHS Network /WNY Athletics. Look for that game. I know that the link is already available, so you can take a look at that game there so you won't miss out. And, of course, this episode, we can't do it without our sponsors. We want to thank UBMD Orthopedics, G&G Fitness, Scroy Financial of West Seneca, Logistics Plus of Buffalo, and the West Herf family of dealerships. Thank you very much for riding along with us these last 11 weeks. It means a lot to not just us, but, of course, those kids that we recognize and those coaches and those teams that put so much work into this past season. And it really was a memorable season. We're going to talk about that and a lot more coming up after a word from our sponsors.
Hey, Josh Allen.
Hey, thanks for coming by.
Big fan.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all about that teamwork.
Yeah, that's West Her. Get the right people, working together, making connections. In fact, show me what you got. I'm going long.
Really?
Made me work for it, but anything worth doing.
Listen, I know you're good at this TV deal, but maybe you should try the football thing.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. And Week 10 provided us a lot of cool highlights from some of those great games over there at New Era Field. I know we probably don't have any from St. Joe's Canisius, but without it, nonetheless, we do have some quality highlights courtesy of Tom Repicci of Prepstar. And here are the Week 10 nominees for the Connolly Cup, the Trench Trophy, and here are the Character Athletes of the Week provided by Cross Training Athletics.
Hey, what's up? Super Bowl champ Steve Means, and y'all watching WNY Athletics.
Well, Dick, we are coming to the end of the season here, and with that, banquet time and other events that have to do with high school football. The first one coming up, we mentioned this last week, the Western New York Football Alliance, Len Jankowicz crew. December 3rd is the college recruiting night out there at New Era Field. I know the entrance is off of Abbott Road. It's gate 6 that you want to use, the Pepsi Club. All the D2 and D3 coaches from New York State, parts of Pennsylvania and Ohio will be there. So if you're a junior or a senior looking to play football at the next level, this is where you need to go. It is Tuesday, December 3rd, and it's at New Era Field in Orchard Park. You could talk to Lenny or get a hold of someone for a makeup date. If some of you are out there wrestling or have a basketball practice or something, there will be a makeup date for that. But the first one is on December 3rd. After that, the very next night, the Trench Trophy will induct their Trench Trophy Athlete of the Year. That's December 4th on Wednesday night. I believe is that at the Elks Lodge there in Lancaster?
Right.
Okay.
At the Elks Club.
Okay. I haven't been to one yet, but I'm looking forward to hopefully getting out to that one this year. And then just a couple days after that, the Connolly Cup will be handed out Saturday, the December 7th at Ilyota Paula's Restaurant. Dick, we have the final 10 list. We are going to read that off in just a few moments. But the Connolly Cup, the winner, will be announced on Saturday, December 7th at Ilyota Paula's Restaurant in Blaisdell. And then, of course, the 33rd Annual Western New York High School Football Awards Banquet that you've been putting on for 33 years, Dick. I got to go last year for the first time, and it was awesome. It was just amazing how many athletes were recognized on that day. It's at Classics 5 Restaurant, Saturday, December 28th. Do you rent a bus to get all those trophies and plaques and everything into? How do you get them all in there?
Well, just a quick story. I used to get the trophies. I still do get them from Tony Martin's. I put all the trophies in my van. Then I would get to my house, take all the trophies, put them in the house, get up at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, get all the trophies, put them back in the car, and take them. And it's like, why are you doing this? Mainly because if you have a rewards night, you got to make sure that the trophies are there. So then Tony Martin changed that years ago, where they deliver all the awards Saturday morning, and also help put out them in the order that they're in the program. So they're a fantastic organization and tremendous people.
Yeah, last year I walked in and I just could not believe how many awards that you were handing out, and it's for everything. It's not even just play, it's for academics too. So it's something to be proud of. If you're invited to this event, please make sure you go. You can't beat the dinner either. The dinner was absolutely amazing, and I'm looking forward to going this year. Thank you very much for putting that on all these years, and that'll be John Murphy, right? John Murphy.
Right, he's the MC, and then when you walk in there for the first time, you think you're going to be in there for 5 hours for the banquet, but he moves it, and he's just fantastic, and he's volunteered his time for 32 years. It'll be 33 years this year as the MC.
And that will do it as far as the banquets and awards go, and of course the Western New York Football Alliance College Recruiting Night, which is Tuesday, December 3rd at Orchard Park at New Era Field. We'll be back in just a few moments after a word from our sponsors.
Why do you exercise? To look better? To feel better? To drop a few pounds? To train for an event? To defy age? Or to keep your ability to say yes to the things you love to do? Whatever motivates you, G&G Fitness Equipment is here to get you there. Treadmills, ellipticals, rowers, bikes, home gyms, and accessories. We'll pair you with the right equipment, teach you how to use it, and be there every step of your fitness journey. G&G Fitness. Your goal is our goal.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly, and Dick, it's time to announce the top 10 finalists for the Connolly Cup. And these 10 guys, all deserving of being recognized. There's so many players, 4,000 players. You pick 10. You're never going to get two guys in the same room to ever agree on 10. You just can't do it. But, as a member of the committee with just guys that actually pay to be on the committee. They volunteer their time, plus they're paying a fee, and then they have to put money in their gas tanks to drive around all these fields, the southern tier, up to Niagara County, out to Albion and, back and forth, Fridays, Saturdays, some Thursdays, and then you meet regularly and you discuss the players throughout the year. And it's not an easy job, and it's an absolute thankless job, because no matter what, these kids are well-deserving, and the ones that just didn't make it in, you feel bad, but you do the best you can with what you have to work with. And it doesn't diminish those who were on the fringe at all. They were probably deserving too, but you can only pick 10, and then you pick one. One walks away with the Connolly Cup trophy. So here it is. This is the list. Are you ready?
I'm ready, and I think it's a gift that you're part of any organization that is providing recognition to student athletes, regardless of the age. And I think that the process is extremely difficult. The number of meetings they have to have, the number of games they have to be able to see, be able to vote. And yet Dennis, Cerro, and I think this is the 44th trophy that they'll be presenting, and they do a fantastic job. You can't please everyone, but I'd say that I could give a list of 18 right away, and so therefore I'd be leaving 8 off.
Yeah.
And yet, nothing against those 8. It's just based on how the vote falls, and as long as there's no surprises, like someone, for example, could be elected one day and was injured the first week, but never happens.
Never. So without further ado, these are the top 10 finalists for the Connolly Cup, the 44th annual Connolly Cup winner. It is going to come down to one of these 10 players, and I will announce that right now. Are you listening? Do you want to know who they are? I'm sure you do. In alphabetical order. Actually, this is not, by school. In alphabetical order by school. So number 1, from Amherst, Anthony McCarley made the list, Dick. And I'm sure you got a chance to see Mr. McCarley play this year. The committee was very, no mix here at all. Everybody on the committee had a chance to see McCarley, and he was just dynamite offensively, defensively, and special teams. Some of his numbers almost hit for 800 yards. And again, his team didn't make the playoffs, but just under 800 yards, had 11 touchdowns, receiving another 412 yards, another 5 touchdowns there. And then, he had 3 interceptions. He had 2 blocked passes, pass deflections. He had another touchdown on defense and a number of kick returns, some for touchdowns, some for picking up some excellent yardage on his returns. He was an electrifying player. 6 kick returns for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. His longest was 85. Just a tremendous football player for Western New York.
Amherst has lost a lot of players to Catholic schools over the years. This year they got one back because Anthony was at St. Joe's last year and he transferred. Runs a 4.5 40, extremely talented, and he deserves to be in the top 10.
So we're proud to announce that Anthony McCarley is a top 10 finalist for the Connolly Cup. Joining him from Bennett, DeJay Perry makes the Connolly Cup. Dick, this is a player that, he played injured almost the entire year and still was one of the most electrifying running backs, football players in Western New York. Can you imagine if he was 100%, even at, I'm going to say 80, 85%? He was still one of the best football players on the field, game in, game out for Bennett. Did go over 1,000 yards rushing, had 10 touchdowns there, and just defensively, DeJay Perry was all guts on defense, and I thought he just had a tremendous season and is well deserving of finally being recognized with this distinction of being a member of the Connolly Cup finalists.
Yeah, he averaged 14 yards a carry last year when he gained over, I think it was 1,400 yards. This year, he averaged 11 yards, and as you mentioned, I think he's played hurt in almost every game, and he's missed a couple of games. But when you take a look at a player that is just tremendously physical on both sides of the ball, you don't see that too often with a running back, but he deserves the recognition.
Joining McCarley and Perry from Canisius, C.J. Ozelins has made the list, and he's getting on the list mostly for his defensive play, and that just speaks the volumes of how deep Canisius is. They don't necessarily need him on offense, but where they have him positioned on defense, this kid recorded 111 tackles in the Monsignor Martin, playing teams like Cathedral Prep and those teams from Ohio, St. Joe, St. Francis. 111 tackles, 14 for loss, 4.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, 4 passes defended, a fumble recover, 3 forced fumbles, 2 block kicks, and he had 14 carries for 63 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. When we mention his name in the meetings, Ozelins was always spoken with in high regard. A lot of people liked this player. They thought he was an exceptional football player. And, people, are going to say, well, his father's the coach at Buff State, and that's why you guys No. This kid did it all on his own. Very well deserving of this recognition, and congratulations to him. He deserves to be here.
I had the pleasure of watching him a couple of times and between last year and this year, and he came over to Canisius from St. Mary's after being with the Lancers for 2 years. But if you take a look at the highlight film of his year, 2019, playing high school football, it is unbelievable. The hits that he puts on people, the tremendous intensity that he has, the tremendous, I think, just an insight related to where the play's going. He's always around the ball, and he deserves this recognition.
Joining them from South Park, Marquand Fluitt. Congratulations. You are a top 10 finalist for the Connolly Cup this year. And just like Ozelins, Fluitt was another one of those guys who defensively really caught our attention. He was like a man amongst boys in Class A this year, just in on almost every play. There were times he was in the backfield even before the quarterback could hand the ball off to the running back. Just very, very disruptive. He's credited with 65 solo tackles, 94 total, 21 for loss, 19 sacks, and just a tremendous, tremendous season defensively for Marquand. But he also got it done on offense when they needed him to. That's such a talented team offensively. It's tough to get everybody the rock. But, he had his share of touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns this year. And, but we noticed him mostly for his defense. But when he was involved in the offense, he was tough to handle and tough to bring down. And so he is very well deserving. And, again, one of those players that has stood out all season.
He has tremendous instinct, but his speed is exceptional, and he plays the defensive line. And as you mentioned, 19 sacks, and he just dominated defensively. And sometimes it would be 3-4 tackles in a row he'd be making on plays, and then also the sacks that he would be able to compile throughout the season. 19, there's not too many players that get 19 sacks in a season.
No. Joining Marquand Fluitt is his teammate, Keith Jackson, also of South Park. The Sparks had a tremendous season, undefeated, just destroying opponents week after week. It's amazing only 2 guys are going to get on the list, but Keith Jackson is going to join Marquand, so congratulations to Keith Jackson. He's also very deserving. He was a handful on Saturday against McKinley, but for the season, almost 800 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns receiving. He had 245 yards and another 5 touchdowns. Defensively, he had 6 sacks, credited with 56 solo, 78 total tackles, and 5 of them were for loss. He had 3 interceptions and 3 defensive touchdowns. Dick, this might be one of the top players in all of New York State. Keith Jackson, very deserving of being involved or included in the top 10 here.
He's only a junior. He's got another year left. And with those stats, and then what he did Saturday as far as scoring 2 touchdowns, rushing for 78 yards, and then having 6 or 7 tackles, he was all over the field.
One of the things I'm going to remember from this past weekend at New Era Field, I always look and see who's here from like Section 5, doing some scouting, and South Park's going to be playing Canandaigua. Keith Jackson made a play on a ball, I believe it was an interception, maybe a pick 6. And this guy from Canandaigua, had to be one of the couches, just put his hands up like this and said, "Oh, my God, how are we going to block this guy?" I have no idea how you're going to block him, Canandaigua, but good luck. And congratulations to Keith Jackson on this incredible honor. Joining those guys from Southwestern, Taiwan Wright. Taiwan, congratulations. You are joining the final 10. You are one of the final 10 guys at the Connolly Cup, and a very deserving honor for Taiwan, who rushed for 1,252 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns on the year for Taiwan, 2 receiving touchdowns as well. Defensively, 19 solo tackles, 33 total, 12 for loss, 4 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery. I have no idea what else this guy could have done other than sell popcorn at halftime. But an unforgettable performance at New Era Field. An unforgettable performance. If you stayed for that game, you really saw how good Taiwan is. 5 touchdowns, 340-plus yards on the ground. And that's a stadium record, by the way.
Oh.
5 touchdowns? Ties a record.
5, yeah, tied.
Yeah.
The yardage I thought was a record. But a kid from Scataragas back maybe 10 years ago rushed for 363 yards.
Just barely missed it.
That's okay. When you take a look at what he accomplished in front of all those people, was just exceptional. And there were times in that first quarter he was carrying, I swear, 7 or 8 players with him. And maybe on one of the runs, 8 or 9 players had the opportunity of being able to tackle him, and he just was too quick.
You know, I'll explain. I explained this to you off the air. With respect to Taiwan, I had gone down to Southwestern a couple of times this past year to actually watch another player. I was going to see Taiwan too, but I went to see another guy in particular that I had heard a lot about. Well, this player was injured that day and wasn't really involved in a whole lot of plays. They were limiting him. But I just could not take my eyes off of the way Taiwan ran with the ball. Just a beast, an absolute beast. Lackawanna was the first game I saw, and I want to say Chautauqua Lake was the other one. But Taiwan was just a bear all day. They could not tackle him, and he's very deserving of being included in the final 10, especially after what he did on the biggest stage of the year. So congratulations to Taiwan. Joining Taiwan Wright, Keith Jackson, Marquand Fluitt, C.J. Ozolins, D.J. Perry, and Anthony McCarley. You want to know, don't you? Well, you'll find out after a word from our sponsor.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics with my good old buddy Dick Gallagher, Mr. Gallagher to me, from WGRZ High School Sports. We're talking about the top 10 finalists for the Connolly Cup. We're actually introducing them to you right now, almost live on your screen. We've mentioned Anthony McCarley, DJ Perry, C.J. Ozolins, Marquand Fluitt, Keith Jackson, and Taiwan Wright. There's 4 guys waiting to hear their names, anticipating. Who is it going to be, Dick? You want to announce the next one, or you want me to do it?
Well, a junior quarterback that lit it up last year with 3,300 yards passing and 36 touchdowns, and just an outstanding player. Quarterback for St. Francis, Jake Ritz.
Jake Ritz, a finalist last year, and before the season was on, the short list of guys that could compete for, the Connolly Cup, obviously, and he is back on this list again, and deservingly so. Threw for over 2,200 yards this year. 27 touchdowns, just 4 interceptions, an exceptional athlete, 131 quarterback rating. That's pretty phenomenal. 64% completion percentage, and a leader, just an absolute leader for St. Francis. He is as good as advertised, and just a junior. So Jake Ritz is back on the list for the second year in a row, and deservedly so. Joining Jake Ritz, his teammate, Xavier Janzelik from St. Francis, an all-purpose back. He has had a tremendous season for St. Francis. He's rushed for 1,133 yards in the Monsignor Martin division. He's got 14 rushing touchdowns, another 3 receiving, and defensively, he was all over the field for St. Francis this past year. Just an incredible season for him and for St. Francis, really, and there's a reason why they have won 7 games in a row now. They're 8-1, and I'm very impressed with Xavier Janslik. I have been all season long, especially in that St. Joe's game. He really stood out to me on that. Was that a Friday night or a Saturday night game? That was a Saturday night game, wasn't it?
He's been a 3-year starter for Jerry Smith and the Red Raiders and excels on both sides of the ball. He's very, very quick. And when you put the team that they have together now with so many skilled kids, and Jake deserves it, and he's going to be the all-time, hold all the all-time passing records, regardless whether it's yardage, regardless whether it's, what career or touchdowns. He's exceptional, and he's just amazing because he's not like 6'3", 6'4", but he gets it done.
Yep, so congratulations to those players. Next on the list, from St. Joe's, Micah Brown. You are a top 10 finalist for the Connolly Cup, and congratulations to you on a very well-deserved honor. When you look at St. Joe's, there's a number of very good football players there, but at the end of the day, Micah Brown is the one that really strikes the fear of God into some of these defensive coordinators because he is just such an amazing talent, very dangerous with the football in his hands, and if it's not in his hands and he's playing defense, keep your head up because he is a tough competitor, and he just had a phenomenal season for St. Joe's. I don't think there's any way to slice it, what he has been able to do all season for St. Joe's. He is the guy. He is the man there. Your thoughts on Micah Brown?
Well, he's one of the most versatile players in Western New York. I think he's played 6 positions for the Marauders this year. In the last couple of years, he was quarterback, particularly last year. And now with Colin Withers coming in as a transfer, they just provided the coaching staff with the ability to have Micah where he needed to be. And not too many kids who can play 6 different positions in high school in one season. So he really deserves this recognition.
He's a multi-purpose player. I mean, he wasn't the number 1 running back. He wasn't the number 1 receiver, and he wasn't the on the depth chart wasn't the number 1 quarterback. But he could have played any one of those positions in an open space. Is there anyone better?
If he would have had 20 carries every game, he'd have been around 1,415.
Yes. Exactly. So congratulations to Micah Brown. Very happy to see that he made the list here. Our last member, our last invite to the Connolly Cup dinner is a very special player. A kid who just, I can't say enough about this kid. I'm glad to see that he made the final cut. From Star Point, Joe Carlson. This kid unfortunately got hurt with just a couple games to go and couldn't finish the season after the Lockport game. But before that, this kid was on a tear. He was lighting it up, receiving, rushing, kick returns, punt returns. I believe he's also the field goal kicker, the extra point, all that stuff. Joe Carlson was one of the most dominant football players in every phase of the game we've seen this past year, especially in recent memory. Joe had a tremendous season. Joe did something this past year that, you would hope that most other guys would follow his lead. His quarterback went down. And at that time, Joe Carlson was, I don't want to say running away with the Connolly Cup, but he could have been nominated each and every week. He was doing something special, whether it was scoring 4 or 5 touchdowns a game. His quarterback gets hurt, and they had no other quarterback. So Joe, who hadn't played quarterback his entire high school career, who had some experience there, goes behind center and becomes a quarterback. And I believe the first game he plays quarterback, was that against South Park?
It was Sweet Home.
Was it against...
I thought...
I don't think he played quarterback that day, but it was the very next game, so that was South Park. So here's a kid who never played high school quarterback, and you have to go out and play against South Park, against those guys that have been terrorizing offenses all year. All the credit in the world for what that kid did, for being a team first guy. And, Al Cavanaro, I don't even think he had to even convince Joe to do it. He just said, hey, Joe, I need you back. And Joe probably, no problem.
He's a class act, and when
Yes.
you watch how he played the game, and particularly after he was injured, it didn't make a difference what position he was playing. And like you mentioned, he probably was like Micah, playing 6 different positions and on special teams, defense and offense. So he's a good recipient for this award.
So those are your top 10 finalists for the 44th Annual Connolly Cup Award. Again, those top 10 players are Anthony McCarley from Amherst, DeJay Perry from Bennett, C.J. Ozelins from Canisius, Marquand Fluitt and Keith Jackson from South Park, Taiwan Wright from Southwestern, Jake Ritz and Xavier Janslick from St. Francis, Mika Brown from St. Joe's, and Joe Carlson from Starpoint. Congratulations. We will see you at the Connolly Cup Banquet at Ilio DePaulo's on December 7th. We'll be back in a moment after a word from our sponsor.
We didn't get here by accident. It starts with a plan to protect your future, to invest in your future. It started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
We needed a plan to protect what matters most. By investing in our future, that all started with Scroy Financial. Plan, protect, invest. Scroy Financial.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. I am Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics. I'm joined by Dick Gallagher from WGRC High School Sports. And Dick, this past weekend, one of the big games was that Canisius-St. Joe's rematch on Kenmore Avenue this past Saturday. Canisius, they lost earlier in the year, and Tom Prince, our buddy, said, watch, the key factor in this game is the fact that we're playing in the cold now. Last time they played, it was like 80, 90 degrees and hot, and guys were going down left and right, and that was a coming out party for St. Joe's, so to speak, and they won, and they won convincingly, I thought. But round 2, it's so difficult to beat the same team a second time in a year, especially when you're talking about 2 very high caliber programs as you are with Joe's and Canisius. So St. Joe's, unfortunately, unable to get it done here. They were trailing 7-0 going into the half. They did get 6 points in the third quarter, a touchdown there, but St. Joe's pulls it out with a late touchdown, and it's a 15-6 win for Canisius. And they're going to move on and play St. Francis.
Canisius is going to have to play a lot better game offensively and defense, although defensively they did very well. But they're going to have to play a better game to defeat Red Raiders in the championship game on Saturday.
One of the key stats from that game, I believe they were 0 for 20 on third and fourth down, 0 for 16 on third down, and 0 for 4 on fourth down, the Marauders. So if you want to go back and look and see what was what, that's where you start, and that's probably where you stop right there. They couldn't get it done on third down. That's a testament to the Canisius defense right there.
Bottom line is you can't afford the turnovers, and those turnovers hurt both teams, but they hurt St. Joe's more. And then that penalty on the 74-yard touchdown run by Micah Brown, and then got a call back because of the penalty. That was game set point.
Absolutely. So this week, Canisius and St. Francis will have another rematch. This time it's at UB. It's a 6 o'clock game. You'll be able to watch that on the NFHS network. We may also have an audio link for that. Subscribe to NFHS, which is a nominal fee. I believe it's $9.95 a month. You could probably catch it on our Mixler channel. We just have to work out some of the technical kinks that we've been experiencing, but hopefully you'll be able to catch that game one way or the other, or go to the game at UB. It should be a nice day. I don't think it's going to be as wintry and as much snow as you saw this morning.
I think the two of the players to watch, Tyler Baker, the sophomore quarterback for Canisius, who's outstanding, and Xavier Janslick, one of the top 10, and the Connolly Cup contending to be the one recipient on December 7th. But both of those, and Xavier on both sides of the ball, but he just gives a tremendous amount of athleticism, speed to the Red Raider offense. And then when you get someone throwing the ball like Ritz, running the ball like Xavier, and then you take a look at Antonio Corsi, they're only a junior. I think he's 6'3", not 190, 200 for a tight end. They're loaded. But Rich Robbins and his staff have been around a long time, and they have their kids ready. So whenever the Catholics play Smash Mouth football, it'll be a fun environment, particularly playing at UB.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I'll be on the call with John Simon, and Tim Wegner, our stats guy, will be there. So we're looking forward to a great game at UB this Saturday. And, of course, before that, Timon and St. Mary's of Lancaster for the Class B, Division B championship for the Monsignor Martin. So best of luck to those two teams as well. Joe Licata's done a phenomenal job with Timon in the last couple of years. And St. Mary's is a team that's struggling with numbers, but they beat O'Hara last week. I believe it was 28-0. So St. Mary's and Timon will lock horns one more time. Can the Lancers pull it out? We'll have to wait and see. I know their baseball team won this past spring. We'll have to see if the football team can follow that up with a big game against Timon. That's at 3 o'clock, and that is also at UB. So best of luck to Timon and St. Mary's. Good luck to St. Francis and Canisius. Dick, we'll be back in just a few minutes after a word from our sponsor.
We have hundreds of square feet of physical therapy in multiple locations. And with the physical therapy, we also have a strength and conditioning bridge program that can help athletes kind of specifically fine-tune their abilities and getting them back to specific sports. For people who are in tune to working with athletes of all different levels, from high school all the way up to the professional teams we take care of. This is a service that's offered through the UB Well program.
Welcome back to High School Football Weekly. Frank Wolf joined by Dick Gallagher from WGRZ High School Sports, and we're going to talk about those Section 6 finals from New Era Field. We're going to start with the D's and work our way all the way up to AA, if you don't mind. A little bit out of order in terms of how the games were played this past weekend, but to make it easier on us, we're going to start right with the Class D game, and that was the first game Saturday. Ty Harper's Wolfpack coming in to play the FE Titans, coached by Jason Marsh. Had a chance to talk to both teams just before the game, and they felt awfully loose heading into that game, which is how you want to be. You don't want to be too tight, but I thought the Titans were extremely loose and ready to go that game. They were very confident on Tuesday. For some reason, one reason or another, Tyler Clear was not available for the Titans for that game, and I think you could see that definitely played a part because CSP won 22-0, and Dick, I don't think any of us didn't think CSP could win the game, but I don't think they were going to shut out Franklinville-Elkville, especially with their hot quarterback, running back, Logan
If they would
Frank.
have had Clear, that would have been a totally different game because in the option, Frank could also just pitch it out to Clear, and he's one of the fastest kids, not only on his team, but in that league. And so that with him not there, and you could just see it because Frank did not have one of the better days being able to throw the ball. And then when you take a look at Barmore and Hinsdale, they've been there before. The team's been there. Swabach, they've got some really studs playing, and they won championships last year. So it didn't surprise me that CSP won because one of the things that I noticed was how well the Wolfpack defensive game plan was put together by the coaches. And they had Cameron Barmore at about 6-7 different places on the field defensively and also 3 or 4 offensively. And he's a man among boys, and it showed the 2 touchdowns, or 2 of the touchdowns were just long passing plays. One from Hinsdale, and the other one was, I forget, it was a pass-to-pass.
That was Swabach.
Swabach.
Yeah, that made SportsCenter. It was
Yeah.
a top 10 play. I believe it was number 4. Now, they will be going to Cortland, I'm getting ahead of myself. They're going to Brockport this Friday. They play 5 p.m. They're going to play Notre Dame Batavia from Section 5. They are at 10-0 right now, and they've been steamrolling their opponents for the most part. They got a running back named Jed Reese. Very good running back. In fact, just a couple games. I don't know what he did in the last game, but I know the game before that he had 233 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns and 5 tackles. They got a quarterback, Gabe McDonald, his name is, and he's only throwing for like 100, 200 yards per game, but he can run too. So he is a running quarterback, so he's a dual threat, and that could be that could present some issues for CSP. We'll have to wait and see. They just came off a big win over Alexander, 14-7 last week to get to this game. So it'll be CSP versus Notre Dame Batavia. That is a Friday game at 5 p.m. You will be able to hear that on our Mixler station. If you're not subscribing now, please go ahead and do so. It is free, and every time we do an audio broadcast, you will get an email notification. So you know that the game is on. All you got to do is click the link, and there you go. You're listening to either myself or Tom Prince or John Simon or someone that can call the game and has a vested interest in Section 5. Section 6 in the Monsignor Martin. But that game can be heard on the Mixler.com/WNY Athletics link. Moving on to the Class C game, it was Southwestern and Wilson, and it was Taiwan Wright on one side, and it was Drew Westmoreland on the other, and those two guys put on a show. Heading into that game, we knew that Declan Ferry probably wasn't going to play, and he didn't. So it wasn't necessarily David versus Goliath with Declan, but without Declan, it was absolutely David versus Goliath in that game. But Wilson hung tough, and compliment all the compliments to those kids for battling it. It was a gutsy effort for everybody, and especially Drew Westmoreland.
And Bobby Atlas, the coach's son, passed for around 200 yards. And against Southwestern, that's just probably one of the worst defensive games that Southwestern had. But yet, Wilson came to play. They had over 300 yards offensively. They did what they had to do, but there was one difference: Taiwan plus the line of the Trojans. So they gave it. They left everything on the field, and Westmoreland he's a very, very outstanding player.
And like we said earlier, Taiwan Wright over 340 yards rushing, 5 touchdowns, tying a stadium record from I believe 2003. So congratulations to Southwestern on the big win. They won by like 30 points, but it was tied at half. So take that for what it's worth. But Southwestern's moving on, and they are going to play combined team Letchworth Warsaw out of Section 5. I don't know. They call them Letsaw, I think, for short. Letchworth Warsaw. Anyways, they're a Class C team there. They outscored opponents this year 152-50. They just beat Leroy last week. They also beat Attica Central to get here. And, their games, not like Southwestern's, where Southwestern was blowing teams out by 30, 40 points a week. There's 14-0 in here, 28-14, 21-7. They did lose to Leroy 3 weeks before the playoff game, 7-6, and a tight one there. So, but they do win this past one. So I think Southwestern, just like I do CSP, I think they have, I don't want to say easy roads, but they have very winnable games here to move on to the next round.
When you take a look at the line they have, that with adding Conrad Thomas to it, and they had 4 or 5 others, coming back in the 2 or 3 year starters, I just don't see Section 5 beating, the Trojans, and I think that the Trojans have a tremendous opportunity if they play the game that they need to, and not necessarily like they played in the first half, but you get a special player with Taiwan White. So when you have the Trojans playing as well as they can, and a player like Taiwan who's playing like a man among boys, it's going to be a tough road for Section 5.
I agree. Moving on to Class B, it was Maritime Charter and Albion in a much closer game than a lot of people thought. Albion was very tough defensively, hard-hitting, and I don't think Maritime was ready for that, but they did pull it out. They did win. Excellent game for them. Addison Copeland returned a punt early to kind of set the tone, but Albion battled back, and it was a close game for much of that first half and into the third quarter especially.
Well, Adam Crenny's done an excellent job. That's taken over as head coach. He's got those kids ready to play. They're physical. Brilliance Johnson, and then Brilliance Johnson has got to be the name of the season as far as
he had a good game too
in football, and he's an outstanding player. But when you take a look at Cody Wilson, who's 6'7", 265 pounds, That's one of the reasons why they kept the game close. But West New York Maritime, they've got so many power players that just can score on special teams or offensively and defensively, and they're going to be a tough out. And I just think that you got to give the edge to the Falcons.
Yep. Maritime had a very good season. Only the one loss to Canisius, but they are undefeated. If you take that game away, they're going to be playing Livonia out of Section 5. Now, that game is going to take place on Saturday at 12 noon, and that is, of course, available on our Mixler.com/WNY Athletics site. That game, again, kicks off. It's the Class C Far Western Regional game, and it'll be heard on Mixler Saturday at 12 noon. Congratulations to Ty Parker for their first win at New Era Field, and they got there in 2 seasons, so they're obviously onto something pretty good there. And Addison Copeland is a guy you want to definitely keep your eye on. Livonia features a kid named Jack Kearney, their quarterback. Doesn't throw a lot of passes, but he can throw and he can run, which I think you see a lot of that dual quarterback threats throughout New York State and really throughout high school football. A lot of them can do both. There's also another guy, Alex Minahan. Just a few weeks ago, he had 238 yards and 5 touchdowns in a game. So he's another guy that you have to be aware of if you're Maritime. Alex Minahan is the guy you're going to want to key in on if you're Maritime's defense.
And Livonia hasn't been there since 1993, and so this is going to be new to them, and sometimes something new. But also, when you're taking into consideration how well the team from Section 6 is playing, and the players with Copeland, Swen, I mean, they can just dominate. And I think going in, I think 4 of the 5 teams from Section 6 have the ability and talent to move on to the state semis.
I agree. That brings us to the Class A game, which was played on Saturday at noon. South Park and McKinley, 2 BPS schools, meeting at New Era Field for the first time. And we thought that could be a very fast game, and it was. And South Park really never, once they got going, they never stopped. I believe they won 38-0 over McKinley. They just ran into a buzzsaw. McKinley hadn't seen an offense like that all year, and I don't think their defense was ready for an offense like that. I just don't, because they were just running all over them, and McKinley couldn't move the ball.
I think that if you take a look at the teams in A1, particularly McKinley and Seneca West, they were the best. But then when you look at the A2 teams, there's 5 of those teams that were fighting for playoff berths, or even 6 of them. And if you take a look at what they accomplished during the season, that game was over in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because of the defense, because of Brandon Brown and the other defensive players, Keith Jackson. The interesting point in that game, even though the score was 38-0 at halftime, and that in the game, South Park was 0-8 in third down conversions, and McKinley was 0-13 or 0-12. And Timmy Delaney's got to fix that this weekend, because he's going to have much better competition. And I really think that the Macs, as you mentioned, never saw a defense. And when the Sparks play defense, it's so physical that if you're not ready for that, you're not going to be in the game. And that was demonstrated in the first few minutes.
So they're going to be playing against Canandaigua Academy, and of course they had scouts out at this game, and they're a tough team. A kid named Dom Camella, they're gonna have to keep their eyes on. A special team, exciting player on special teams. Zach Wantuck is one of their running backs. Their quarterback, Brian Boldrin for Canandaigua, doesn't throw a lot, but when he does, he's on. He's a very, very good quarterback. His numbers are like 11 for 14. 4 of 5 in a week, 5 of 7 the week before, 12 of 16. Very good quarterback. Seems to be on his game. Another guy named Matt Verley, he's their kicker. That's something that South Park doesn't do a good job of, is kicking. Well, this team can kick, so Canandaigua is well balanced, and it is going to be an absolute fight. And South Park's going to have, they haven't really been pushed around, and maybe you can't push them around. Some of those guys are, look like they should be wrestlers,
But you take a look at when they played Williamsville South. Williamsville South was winning at halftime at 7-6. They finally won 28-7, but they didn't have their starting quarterback in that game. Then if you look at the semis, it was, closer than some people thought. But if you look, there is no kicking game for the majority of teams in Western New York. And for the city schools, rarely do you have a kicker. And I still think that South Park is just too talented, too physical, and should be able to be in the semis, not this week, the week.
I certainly hope so. That brings us to the Class AA, Lancaster and Orchard Park. They locked horns for the second time this season. And disastrous first half for both teams in terms of the turnovers. But that second half was pretty exciting, and Lancaster ends up coming out on top. That Ethan Jerkowski was phenomenal, and to me, the player of the game. But how about Nick Castellana? Caught a couple of nice passes there for touchdown. He was excellent, and Manziel got his game going in the second half. But, the first half wasn't really a good half for either offenses. A lot of turnovers and things of that nature. But Lancaster does pull it out, and Eric Rupp is now 4 for 4 at New Era Field. And to start the game, like he had been for I don't know how many weeks, he's been up in the booth with the cameras calling plays from the press box. Well, he was for the first half, but he came down for the second half, and he had a totally different kind of energy than I've seen in quite some time. He was up and down the field, jumping, doing breakdance and whatever else he was doing. But he really inspired those kids, and they were the better team in the second half.
Yeah, and in the first half, Orchard Park had to, in the first half, been in Lancaster territory 6 times, if not 7 times, and they got 3 points in the half. They could not handle the front 7 of Lancaster, and to me, that was the difference in the game. And then if you take Sean Davis and return him the kickoff for a touchdown, that was the momentum change,
yes.
The game changer. And and you take a look at it, the first half did not look like a championship game. Neither team played well. The second half, Lancaster did what they needed to do.
Connor Mahoney and Matt Marshner had excellent games as well for Lancaster. I want to make sure I mention those guys. And what an electric locker room after. Those guys were extremely excited to win because they had just lost Orchard Park a few weeks before. So Lancaster's moving on, and they're going to play McQuaid Jesuit, who has beaten Aquinas twice this year. They just beat him 30-27, and earlier in the year they beat him 27-21. But they also beat Pittsford twice. They beat James Monroe twice. This is a very, very good team. If anyone's unfamiliar with Section 5, it's usually Aquinas, and every now and again McQuaid sneaks in there. And they're good, and they're extremely young, though. McQuaid is extremely young, and I wish I had names to give you of who to look out for. But people talk about WNY Athletics website. I can't find this, I can't find that. Well, you can't find anything on Section 5 website with these kids and these players. You can see rosters, but you don't see stats. We've got all that stuff on WNY Athletics for Section 6 players. I think our website's pretty good compared to these other ones. I got to try looking for players' names and numbers and stuff.
And McQuaid beat Aquinas, I think, for the first time since 1998 because they've dominated, the Little Irish. But the good thing about, the Legends playing McQuaid, to me, is they're not playing Aquinas. Because Aquinas can get into you just knowing what type of physical play talent they have. And they can't afford turnovers, they can't afford the penalties, and they've got to be able to convert third downs to be able to control the ball. But they got a shot, but they're going to have to play their A game.
2 years ago, we went 5-0 in the Far West Regionals. I don't know if we can do that again. That'd be wonderful if we can. We're obviously pulling for our Section 6 teams to do well. And, of course, Monsignor Martin, I don't know who you want to pick in that game because it's going to be a good one. You just hope for good games. And everyone comes out healthy. Dick, I like our chances this weekend against 5. I do. Up and down. I think all 5 of our teams can win this weekend.
I agree. In the 80s, Section 5 dominated us. This decade, we've turned it around, and for whatever reason. But I'd love to see 5-0 or 4-1. But I really think that we have 3 teams that should be favorites to going in. The other 2 are going to have to play their A game to win.
Yeah, I mean, you can't take any plays off at this point. You got to protect the football. That's what it comes down to. But let's see what happens. I mean, all these games are at Brockport, the State College at Brockport, and Brockport, New York, just about an hour away from Western New York. So if you can get down there, I believe tickets are $7 to get in. But if you can't make it, if you search the NFHS network and search WNY Athletics, that's us, you could subscribe to the NFHS network. If you're going to subscribe to NFHS network and you haven't done so, I encourage you to go to NFHS network, search out WNY Athletics, and then hit subscribe from there. And you'll get alerted to the games you want to follow. If you want to follow Lancaster, after you subscribe, search for the schools you want, and you'll get notified whenever they do a broadcast. But you can watch any game on NFHS network that's being done right now. They will have all the games from Brockport all the way through Syracuse, the Carrier Dome. And the subscription is good for a month. If you don't want to do that, if you're not going to do that and you're not going to travel and you just want the audio, Mixler.com, search for WNY Athletics. That's a free subscription there. And thank our sponsors for advertising with us. That gives us the opportunity to do those games on Mixler. But, Dick, it was an exciting season, and it's been wonderful doing this show for you. I hope we get to continue this next year. I always look for you. You know that. And, you're my mentor when it comes to high school football. I don't know what the hell I'm doing without you.
Hey, thanks for providing me with the opportunity. I enjoyed it. Josh is the magician putting this together, and I'm just thankful that I'm healthy enough to do it, and hope that we have 24 state champions. I hope that a few of the teams can bring back a state championship to Western New York.
Yeah, it'd be incredible if they can do that. But Dick, I again thank you for sticking around for these 11 weeks. I think I missed one. I was late for one, or I missed one episode. But either way, we did it. And again, best of luck to all of our Section 6 and Monsignor Martin teams this weekend. And to all those coaches, thank you very much for all the hard work you put in this season. We appreciate it. To all the guys on the sideline, the officials, the volunteers, the Trench Trophy guys, the Connolly Cup guys, the character athlete guys from cross training, those guys on the chain gang. I know you guys. It was a tough year for you guys too, but, for the chain gangs. I know those guys down in Fredonia, my buddy Brian, God bless you for everything you do. And, those officials, I take my hats off to you. You guys have the toughest job of them all. You guys up there in the 3rd or 4th row that are complaining and crying and screaming about every call, hey, you know the number. Dial it up and become an official and put the time in, and before you know it, you can be down there and we'll be yelling at you. But we need more officials.
To close out my comments for the season, why is it that the officials, football-wise and many other sports, wear zebra clothing, and why they have to put up with a lot of the chirping on the part of parents and players and coaches? What those guys do, and ladies, is, to me, first of all, if you don't have the officials, you don't have a game. And every one of those guys pay the price. They have to go through Little League, work their ways up to be able to play high school. Some of them even do college. But they deserve a lot of credit, because if you're there and you're hearing all the chirping and screaming and whatever, it's like, come on, people, get your act together and start allowing your kids to see parents who they admire rather than parents who are making fools of themselves at the games and swearing and belittling people, etc. We've come a long way athletically. We sure as heck have a long way to go to get the parents in place that they can do a much better job related to sportsmanship.
And Dick,
That's my other homily for the day.
In this day and age, with all the social media and the video cameras and the cell phone cameras that are out there, that behavior is often caught on tape. And when coaches go searching for recruiting these players, they're not just recruiting the player, they're recruiting the family too. And if they see that mom or dad up in the stands are a major distraction and disruptive and foul-mouthed and everything else, they pass on that kid all day long. And Dick, in the position that we're in, we do get calls from recruiters. We get calls from these college coaches. Hey, I see this guy's numbers are excellent. What's he like on the sideline when he's not in the game? They want to know what he's like on the sideline. When you get to the next level, you're really fighting for your job because there's kids from all over coming in that are also being recruited. They don't just recruit one kid to play linebacker. They're recruiting 30. And if 10 show up and 6 are from Jersey, 4 from Philly, and 2 from Brooklyn, good luck trying to make that team. You still got a lot of work to do, so that's why they want to know how you behave on the sideline. Are you a team player? Are you going to be a good fit here? Because if you're on the sideline crying and complaining that you're not in the game, can you imagine if you're playing at Brockport or Syracuse or Penn State and you're going to act like a goofball on the sideline in front of 50,000 people? You're not going to embarrass those coaches.
Plus, the other thing is if the student athlete does not think that they're a student and have to have good academics to be able to play at the next level, they're making a wrong decision. And some of them who are outstanding talent, outstanding ball players, should be receiving scholarships, are not even offered anything, mainly just because their grades aren't going to allow them and afford them the opportunity to play college ball.
Absolutely. So that'll do it for the second season of High School Football Weekly. For Dick Gallagher of WGRZ High School Sports, I'm Frank Wolf from WNY Athletics. We'll see you next year.
WNYathletics.com is the premier high school sports website in Western New York, providing the best sports coverage of Section 6 and Monsignor Martin leagues. Check out our page for daily game recaps and late-breaking sports news. Our online scoreboards are updated in real time. Never miss a goal or touchdown. Visit WNYathletics.com today or follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube.